It's July 23rd, 2017. You're listening to the Fancy Ramen podcast. I'm Neil.
I'm Cookie.
And I'm Scott.
And the song we were listening to today was from the Japanese 2016 film Tag, which was maybe my second most exciting thing I've done this week. A very weird horror thriller comedy movie that was directed by Sion Sono. Probably doesn't mean anything to the two of you, but this guy is known for doing a lot of weird shit. So this high school girl is in a school bus writing poetry when one of her friends starts talking to her and accidentally knocks away her pen. As she goes down and grabs the pen, like she has to get out of her seat, she's kneeling down grabbing the pen. At that very moment, a gust of wind cuts the school bus in half horizontally, so you have a top and bottom.
And in doing she's so, the only survivor?
Yes, in doing so, it cuts every other girl, since it's assumedly a female school trip, or like a girl school. It cuts every other girl in half at the waist, including the driver and the teacher in the front seat, which are more decapitations. And it follows a 10-minute, maybe 8-minute-ish scene of her running away from the wind until she ends up finding some other students that she happens to know only after taking the clothing of a dead student from a different school. And then the movie jumps into like a 15 to 20 minute sequence that's kind of slice of life. It has like the tone of a slice of life movie and a coming of age story for, young female adults. And where it goes from there is even stranger and more surreal would be the best way to put it. But if you guys want to be weirded out, I highly recommend this movie. It's not amazing or anything. It definitely feels like the longest 85 minutes I've ever watched.
So you're saying it's a coming-of-age story with
No, it has
murder at the beginning, or
it has the overtones of a coming of age story for the next 15 minutes, but it quickly changes.
Okay, so what would you say the narrative generally is then? It's just this like fever dream of whatever's going on with this girl, or
yeah, it's kind of like someone watching Inception. And we're like, I bet we could make something even more trippy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm super confused. I'm trying to read the Wikipedia, and hopping from paragraph to paragraph, it almost sounds like it's nearly a different movie every paragraph.
Yes.
It's about the same thing with Google image searches, by the way.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Neil.
So what have you guys been up to this week?
As far as movies go, I went and saw Dunkirk in theaters on Friday night.
The Christopher Nolan movie, World War II.
Yeah, it's pretty good. As far as cinematography goes, just the film and what Nolan captures is like really pretty. It's about the evacuation of Dunkirk, and to keep it short and sweet, essentially there's 400,000 British troops, and I don't know if this includes the French troops that are also holding the line at Dunkirk or not, but there's at least 400,000 of them, and the Brits are trying to get at least 40,000, so roughly 10%, of their troops back in order to protect the mainland in the UK. And they have no way to get their men out, really. They have a very small landing area where they can actually get ships in and men aboard. And so the Germans, while they're pressing them from both sides, are just dive bombing overhead periodically to thin out their numbers. And so morale's really low, and the story is told on like 3 different fronts. The land, which is mostly the beach side, the sea, which they're trying to cross the channel to get to England, and then the air above the channel. And so there are like three narratives that are going on, and it kind of explores the ideas of both duty and self-preservation and that very British stiff upper lip kind of philosophy. It's a good movie. It's super dialogue light, which I think is actually played to its benefit. But it's super gorgeous. And when I was watching it, I thought this would be really cool to see in that 70 millimeter film kind of medium. Same thing that Tarantino did when he did the Hateful Eight. And it turns out when I was looking up some stuff later that it actually was shot in 70 millimeter. So if that opportunity is available, you guys should go see it at a theater that has a screen that will show you it in either 35 or 70 millimeter, because then it's super widescreen, high def, and it's gorgeous already.
When you said that it was pretty, I was particularly happy with that comment, entirely because I've heard complaints about the movie being too gray and colorless. And my instant gut reaction was that this is a film that takes place during a time of war that doesn't take place in a mystical forest or in a tropical or mystical forest or some like fantasy setting. So I always felt really negative immediately by those comments.
Yeah, really for a war film, it's quite colorful. And I'd say so just because you really do have these extremely beautiful like panning shots of the coastline and the horizon of the ocean and the air. There's only a couple of times watching the film, and there's only one like really, really awkward moment where the filming is kind of unpleasant, but otherwise there's quite a bit of color there for a war film. And there are a couple moments where I think Christopher Nolan does just like this really, really great job juxtaposing really bright or contrasting colors against one another without spoiling anything. Obviously, a movie where the Germans are bombing at some of the ships trying to take evacuees across the channel. A ship or two gets sunk, and during one of the sinking scenes, you can just see this very like dark navy blue water, and then the bright kind of orange flames reflecting off the top of the surface of the water as the ship sinks. And he does this really cool thing with the camera where he kind of syncs the camera with the ship as it tilts in. So you get to see the water kind of swallow up from an angle across the screen. It's really, really good technique. It's very cool. Yeah, it's a pretty movie, and it has a really nice tension to it that I think the lack of dialogue adds to. I don't think that the orchestration is that great. It's tense like it should be, but it got a little annoying after a while. There's kind of a ticking theme that goes on it, sort of like a watch or a stopwatch. And at first, it's really well paired with everything. But as it continues throughout the film, just because it happens so often, it starts to get pretty annoying. But all in all, I enjoyed the film quite a bit. Like if I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5.
The way you described that made me want to watch that more than I want to watch Tag. No offense, Neil.
But that's fine.
I'm more likely to watch Tag than Dunkirk, though. No offense, Scott.
I would like to know, do you think Harry Styles played his part well?
I don't even know what Harry Styles looks like, but I knew he was in the movie. So I was watching it the whole time, assuming that this one character was him, only to find out later I was wrong. And I truly do know nothing about who he is, because I spoke to, I can't remember if it was my girlfriend or her sister, because we went to see the film while some of my girlfriend's family was in town. And I mentioned the character that I thought was Harry Styles, and they're like, that's not Harry Styles. He was someone completely different. I was like, oh, well, I at least recognized Mad Max and the fighter plane. And I don't know why Tom Hardy. That's really one of the few people I was able to recognize in the movie.
Ultimately, I think that's probably a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, now that I do know who Harry Styles' character is, he did just fine. Like there was I don't know. There wasn't that much dialogue for him to fuck up, but I think everybody played their roles very convincingly. So I really enjoyed all the acting. And the only other face that I like definitely recognized is like one of their admiral. I'm almost certain it's Ewan McGregor. And then they had another, I think he was another British unit who tried to evacuate, and he may have been, I don't know if he would have been an officer or not, but he seems like he had slightly higher status than some of the other characters that we follow for the kind of land and sea narrative. And that's the guy who plays Scarecrow in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Or not The Dark Knight, Batman Begins. That's right. And so I don't remember his name, but I definitely recognized his face immediately and thought, oh, Christopher Nolan must have liked working with him. He brought him back.
For those of you that don't know, Harry Styles is the one singing singing at the campfire with the other Lannister soldiers. Okay, there's a little chuckle. I don't feel so bad about that joke now.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you and your. Did you watch the episode?
Yeah,
Okay.
Obviously. So I can shit talk it.
I'm guessing you didn't like the episode?
Well, actually, do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Sure. That's about the only thing I watched this week.
So, Game of Thrones
Game of
season
Thrones.
7.
Episode 1,
Yeah.
starring Ed Sheeran.
Okay. I was just going to say, I really don't like being someone that only consumes American and British pop culture and media from reaction YouTube channels for the most part. I don't really see what the problem was with Ed Sheeran there, and I thought he did perfectly fine.
There was a problem with Ed Sheeran there?
Yeah, a lot of people are pissed off about Ed Sheeran being having that cameo. And he's also seen a song. Did you read the books?
No.
Okay, my book knowledge is really, really shitty at this point. Actually, before we go any further, Scott, do you watch Game of Thrones? I think I've asked before.
Yeah, I get asked this every once in a while. And my usual answer to just keep things like short and sweet on my understanding is I actually watched it, I think, with pretty good comprehension up until the 4th season, or whenever that guy called the Viper got his eyes gouged out.
Yeah,
Okay.
Did you stop watching because he was the best character?
No, but he's a really excellent character. I really enjoyed him. And then there was something going on with, I liked, oh man, what's her name? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Khaleesi of Dragons or
Damn it.
whatever. Yeah, I liked Khaleesi's friend zone night. That was pretty great too. I liked him as a character, and I also really liked that he got very sour when Khaleesi was not like romantically interested in him.
The bear, Jorah.
Okay, yeah, and then I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that I remember anything about their story. I guess Tyrion.
Yeah.
And who's the sister fucker? What's his name?
Jamie? Jamie.
Jamie, yeah. Good old one-handed bandit Jamie.
All right. This
I
just tells
liked
me
their storyline.
This just tells me I should keep it relatively short then.
I mean, you can talk about it as much as you want. I don't have much to say because I'm not caught up, but I certainly enjoyed the show while I was watching it.
So
I just lost my hookup.
From what I gathered, the response to Ed Sheeran's role in episode 1, he plays relatively a minor role, at least what will be in the TV show, I'm assuming. But he sings a particular song. My book knowledge is really, really weak at this point since I haven't listened to the books or read the books in a while. But the song he sings is one that is written by a character in the books that was cut out from the show. And he gets killed. I mean, it's of little consequence, but it's just another like potential detail that the show more or less is like referencing the source material in a way that isn't that full. And I think it just sours people even more by having that done by a character or by an actor that is a cameo role, you know? I don't necessarily understand why people are getting mad about it either, but it's whatever. People apparently don't like Ed Sheeran. I think did perfectly fine there.
Let's say they said, "Hey, we need somebody to sing this song to give those book readers something to guac about," and they were like, "Oh, this guy sings. We could probably get him for cheap."
Yeah, like
And he's famous. Yeah.
Yeah, he's famous. He's a pop star, I'm assuming, or
Yep.
pop folk
He
star.
does some good stuff. And then, but yeah, he was in there for like 30 seconds, and you're just super worried for him the entire time because you're pretty sure he's gonna die.
You know,
I was sure he was going to die.
well, yeah, especially because Arya starts looking around at their weapons.
Yeah, it's
It's oh, no one has their blades on them. I could kill them all right now. But there are conflicting viewpoints on that scene at the campfire. But I think the most logical one is that by them being so kind to her, like there's a saying that I am going to completely fuck up since I'm not prepared to talk too much Game of Thrones. But it's basically like, be kind to the stranger, referring to one of the 7 gods, and the stranger will be kind to you. And
Makes
they
sense.
are being kind to Arya, who is representing the stranger in this case, because she's more or less part of the Faceless Men at this point, even though she's not part of the Faceless Men.
She is the Faceless Men now.
Yeah, or at least the representation in Westeros, right?
Yeah.
Just listen to everything you're missing out on.
Oh my God. Scott, just catch up, binge watch. I don't care where you got to find it. Everything was just for that cold open.
Yeah, it was a good open. It was a good opening to the season.
Exactly.
I have a single question that will determine whether I even make an effort to try and watch or not, and that's if my favorite character's still alive, which I understand is difficult in Game of Thrones.
Difficult to stay alive in.
Yeah, difficult for characters to stay alive in Game of Thrones. But how's Arya Stark doing?
That's the one we were just talking about.
That's your favorite character?
Is that not your favorite
Why-
character now?
No.
Why wouldn't she be your favorite character?
Because I think her story is not that exciting, and at times
She's
poorly written.
And
she's
whose
a
story's
great
better?
two-dimensional character. She wants to fuck shit up because she's angry.
By the end of season 4, is she training by then? Because I think her
I think
storyline's
she
fine.
abandons the Hound, but
Yeah,
I
that sounds about
don't
right.
believe she's left to train for anything.
Yeah, so it's her season 5 and season 6 storylines that I could do without. I honestly would have been fine with a 30-second training montage with that song, "You're the best around. Nothing's ever gonna get you
the
down."
Rocky training montage.
Yeah, and then she comes back in season 7, and you could seriously
then you-
cut out the majority of that.
But then
So
you
she-
wouldn't understand,
she is alive, right?
Oh, yeah, she's alive.
There are some
Okay,
good
cool.
parts in that storyline, and we're not going to talk about them too much. There are some critical points involving assassinations that really build her character, but there's a lot of shit that I don't think they needed to cover, and the books don't necessarily cover to any degree either.
Makes sense. Are you going to be excited then, having read/listened to the books, the fact that the 7th book isn't out, so you're not going to know what's going to exactly happen?
Yeah, and even the end of season 6, there's portions of that weren't in the books.
Because I feel as if that's a lot of people's gripes about the show. Is oh yeah, we read the books and we want it to be exactly the same as the books, but you can't do that.
Right, you have to cut things out, but the issue I've had is that they haven't done justice to certain storylines in the series, in the TV show. Like the Dorne storyline, which is something that you'll have to drudge through as well, Scott, should you watch seasons 5 and 6. The Dorne storyline, aside from Oberon, it's garbage. It's hot dumpster garbage. I'll save you.
Gives your boy Jamie something to do.
Yeah, a little bit. And so that's the thing. It also hurts Jamie's character because Jamie is by far the most compelling person in the series, book and show, in my opinion.
Why is that?
I won't go too far into spoilers, but his journey in the novels is by far way more transformative for him as a character. And in the show, I just personally don't think some of the show-focused characters necessarily are as interesting as their book counterparts. I think Jon Snow, for instance, is very much like a Mary Sue in some regard. He's the do no bad, pure, idealized hero of our books, whereas he's a little more calculative and you can see the plotting going on, because you have POV chapters for one thing, but you can see he's not nearly as perfect in the books. And even his resurrection. Spoilers. Sorry, Scott. But
That's okay. I'm actually half listening, both for my own defense and because I can't contribute that much to it. Besides, like, oh, and really.
Anyway, yeah, we watched that. I'm in. I haven't read the books, so I don't get upset about minor details and the things that I'm missing. I don't care about because I don't know about them.
But I don't necessarily think you can just say you don't get upset about minor details, referring to that being the common thread that every book reader is upset about minor details. Because I don't necessarily think it's
Which
that
is why I stopped
minor
reading
at
books.
times. What's that?
Which is why I stopped reading books.
Right.
And kind of curious as to whether or not I'm gonna like the Ready Player One movie.
Yeah.
It's coming out in 2018. Since I've read the book, love that book. I'll never watch an Aragon movie because fuck that movie. Because I read the books. Never read the Harry Potter books. So great movie. Yeah.
I think that those are the single series that I know that the books are just as entertaining as the movies, if not more so.
Harry Potter?
Yeah, man.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I was forced to read any book that turned into a movie before I could go see it. At least while I was.
That sounds like an awful thing to put a person through.
You should tell my mother that.
I will. Next time I see her, I'm just going to be like, hey, Miss Trickle, it's an awful thing to put your son through, forcing him to read a book before he goes to see the movie.
And especially Harry Potter.
It was when it was. No, Harry Potter was fine. It was when it was Lord of the Rings that it was awful. Do you know how boring The Two Towers is?
The movie or the
miserably
book?
Boring.
It's not that
so
bad.
The movie or the book?
The book. And the book's the shorter of the three, too. I think, what is it? Fellowship of the Ring's enormous. Two Towers is normal sized, but it's dry as hell. And then Return of the King, also very dry, even larger.
I have one
They all
question
suck.
for you. When did you read Harry Potter, the first book?
The first Harry Potter?
Yeah, is that the Sorcerer's Stone? I don't fucking remember.
Sorcerer's
Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, depending on what region you were in.
I was about to say, we've got
Anyway.
the British version of the DVDs, so it's the Philosopher's
Okay.
Stone.
So anyway, I probably read that, I don't know when the first one came out. I probably read it like 3rd grade, 4th grade.
Yeah, okay. So imagine reading it when you're 20 instead.
Okay, so I can actually, I can counter this though, because I think my sister right now is rereading the books. And so
There's a sense of nostalgia if you're rereading the books. My issue is that when you pick up Harry Potter for the first time as a 20-year-old, because you're like, I completely didn't read any of these or watch the movies. Maybe I should just give it a shot because
What's Harry Potter's aunts and uncles' names?
the Dursleys, Vernon, and
the Dursleys. The first chapter of the first book of Harry Potter, the Dursleys. Oh yeah, the Dursleys, something Dursleys, something Dursleys. I started reading the first book too, and I was just like, okay, no, I'm over this because I've said Dursley 28 times, and I'm not done with the second paragraph.
Right, like nothing. Like I don't want to take anything away from J.K. Rowling. That's her name, right?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Because I think she is extremely talented, and I think her writing gets significantly better as the series goes on. But man, the first couple books are kind of rough. Harry looked at the puddings. The puddings looked delicious. Harry took a just the first scene in the dining hall is just as painful to read.
I couldn't get that far.
Yeah.
A much better series to read about wizards for children is the Young Wizard series by Diane Duane. It actually gives meaning to magic.
Yeah, we've
that's
talked about this before, right?
Probably. That's my one complaint about like Harry Potter and like most magical genres is because they're like, oh yeah, magic.
It happens. We don't really explain how you do magic or what it does or if there's any consequence because magic, you're reading our books for escapism, not for more analytical reasons.
I want to know. Diane Duane, she tells you, she's like, oh yeah, magic is really in the world to help stop entropy. When you use magic, you're speeding up entropy just a little bit, but if you use it responsibly, you're helping stop the big death. So I was like, yeah, perfect. I know what's going on with that. Dresden, magic is pretty much fucking stamina. You use magic until you're too tired to use magic anymore, and it might kill you if you use too much. Harry Potter, they're just like, flame dragon, water dragon, earth dragon.
It's all about the complexities of the hand and wand movements
Yep.
and the verbal sayings. Oh, you fucked up that syllable. Now you just somehow turned that dragon spell into a swamp ass spell. And now everyone in the room has uncomfortable swamp ass.
Let me just use this other spell to clear that swamp ass smell up, not having to analyze anything. I just happen to know a Febreze spell.
Luckily, you're an instructor that happens to know all of those things immediately. It's like, oh, yes, you said Ferakis instead of Veradis. Quite. I wasn't trying to be Snape there. I think Snape is pretty cool.
Hi, Scott. We're back
Hey,
to
I'm just
talking about
hanging out.
anime now.
Sorry for hating on your favorite series, Scott.
It's not my favorite series.
Scott, it's okay. It's okay. You
think
don't
it's
have
great.
to. You don't have to defend yourself. It's all right, man. It's cool. Speaking of things that, you know what? Fuck this segue. Let's talk about Splatoon 2. So that came out on Friday of this last week. That would have been the 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
Actually, the 21st.
That sounds better.
I only have one Switch, so that means I only had a few hours of Splatoon 2 gameplay. But I can say without a doubt, it's pretty fucking good. I did not play a whole lot of Splatoon 1 though on the Wii U, so I can't necessarily say if it's that much better. The perception I've gotten from other people is that it's more or less the same game, just more of it, and maybe more in that specific Splatoon direction. Listening to the soundtrack in particular, it feels exactly like Splatoon 1, but just more Splatoon. I don't know if that makes sense.
So for those of you who have not played Splatoon or Splatoon 2, and if you've played the game Titanfall and Titanfall 2, it's the exact same comparison. It's just more of the same game, but better?
It's Squid. It's like super hyper cartoony art, Squid kids playing paintball, except their guns don't really work that well.
I don't know. I think their guns work pretty well.
I'm just saying that, like, if I have a paintball gun in real life, that thing's going to shoot like hundreds of yards far.
Well,
whereas in this, it's
they're
going to
not shooting
shoot
balls, right? They're shooting
Paint.
blobs.
They're
Yeah,
just
I guess.
shooting
like
loose
streams.
paint.
You
It's
know,
like Super Soaker paint gun.
when you
Yes.
phrase it that way, they work real well.
They're just
yeah.
But just from the context of like a first-person shooter game,
It's a
one of
third
the
person.
third person. Sorry, a third-person competitive shooting game. The most obvious thing you could say about Splatoon, aside from the fact that you also want to paint the battleground, is that your bullets do not travel that far.
Well, you don't want to really shoot the other players.
That's
The point
that's
of
like
the game
30% of the game though, because you have to splat in order to tune. I didn't think that one through. You have
You didn't.
you have to splat
Awful.
people in order to
Awful.
paint your battlegrounds because you don't
Only
win
'cause
from
they're-
kills.
only because they're in the way.
Well,
Yeah,
right.
The
But-
other thing to note that makes this really unique is that don't you have like way better mobility in your own paint?
Yes.
You do.
Like you can dash through your paint as a squid, which is awesome. It's a super cool mobility element.
But it doesn't take away from the fact that if you're just absolutely shitty or you have a team that is not able to go on the offensive, you will ultimately lose. Like matches are 2 minutes long, but
Something like that.
even over that 2-minute course, as short as that can be, the arena is not big enough to just fight for territory. You have to have some conflict, or you're fighting a team that doesn't know how to paint their own base. Like that can also be an option. But I think being able to splat the other team is just as useful and just as important as being able to splat your own base.
But it doesn't come in handy to splat the other team if no one's painting the ground.
Right. So that's why they have to go hand in hand. Those two things are very important. But it's just that specific mechanic, being that your weapons don't travel a great distance, is also one of the defining elements that makes Splatoon fairly successful in its variety of weapons. Like your basic machine gun is only going to shoot a few yards in game, so to speak, in front of you, whereas a sniper rifle will go a greater distance, right?
Yeah.
But you still can't like paint snipe somebody off the map, can you?
Maybe not the same distance you could in COD, but when you think about a game like COD or Halo, like you can still shoot people at those big distances. So it sometimes makes different weapons like less unique or useful. If you actually can hit someone with a pistol at a greater distance, it's still going to deal the same amount of damage in some of those older shooter games. Shooters, whatever. I think Splatoon does a great job of dividing the usefulness and like the play types for each weapon. Like the sniper rifle might not be as good at painting the ground, but it does a great job at taking out enemies from a range. But then you have items like the oh my gosh, what's
paint
the
roller?
roller? Yeah, the paint roller, which is awesome at covering ground, so to speak, and good close up. But you could be countered by someone a little further away. Unless
you're just garbage tier, Neil. Because man, the jumping and doing the vertical slice down, oh yeah.
Oh right,
that gets that nearly as far
range.
That gets nearly as far as the sniper rifle.
It's probably my favorite weapon, actually, the paint roller.
It's that between that and the dueling pistols. There's an air gun now, like an airbrush gun. It's like the normal,
Air SG or Air MSG something.
And it just seems phenomenal, but I don't have that unlocked yet. So I just use the dueling pistols or the paint roller. So if I don't know people, I guess I don't know anybody that's playing this game because we don't really have that good of online functionality. Nintendo? Maybe? Nope. Okay.
I'll have to get you hooked up with Tiffany so you guys can play together.
But yeah, so depending on my mood, I'll probably I do mostly rollers, but if I'm feeling real feisty, I'll go with the dueling pistols because I like tapping the B button while I'm shooting to do like a quick dash away and shoot a little bit faster for a couple of seconds.
The paint mobility too, going into squid form within like a few hundredths of a second, it seems. Maybe that's a little too fast, but that is what makes this game like so fun and what gives you the impression of having such a high skill cap. But as someone who has played a lot of Splatoon 1, no, you haven't?
We didn't play any Splatoon 1.
I thought you had it for the Wii. Oh,
no, because we couldn't. Me and my wife couldn't play together, and we weren't going to buy a second Wii U. So as soon as I find a second Switch, I'll actually just pick it up.
Well, shit. Then I guess this question, I can't even have this question, or I can't even ask this question. Then,
ooh, what's the question?
It was basically just how much better is Splatoon 2 from Splatoon 1?
A lot better, because I can play it now. I can play it anywhere I go.
That's got to be such a big plus to be able to pull that out whenever you want.
We've probably said enough about Splatoon 2.
It exists, and you can buy it. Unlike the SNES Classic.
It's especially ironic that you point out that it doesn't exist because on Friday, Walmart actually hosted or accidentally, keyword here, updated their SNES Classic storefront page, I guess, or whatever, for pre-orders. So a lot of people obviously put in their pre-orders, and most of them have been having their pre-orders canceled the following day, Saturday, or even today. Essentially, when they were testing everything out, they accidentally made it live and published it.
Slip of a keystroke.
For all of those people that thought they had SNES Classics pre-ordered, they do not, unfortunately.
Pour one out for my dead homies.
In learning so, we have found out that the SNES Classic pre-orders will be live sometime this week.
At least in Walmart. Because where did the NES Classic have pre-orders available?
United Kingdom.
No. I mean, storefront-wise in the U.S.
Oh, for the NES Classic?
Yeah, because I know Walmart, and that was about all I heard. I think Amazon had some?
Yeah, Amazon did, but
that was like the only retailers, right?
GameStop as well.
No, it did not.
It did not? Are you sure?
100%.
Someone was just saying that they were pre-ordering from their SNES Classics from GameStop physical store locations.
Really? So they're releasing the SNES Classic for a GameStop pre-order then? Because they did not for the NES.
not on the website.
No, they didn't do it anywhere for the NES. I've seen GameStops where they were like, yeah, we never even heard of anything. Because I was walking into my local GameStop for the NES Classic. Just like every day after work, I was like, hey, what's happening with the NES Classic? We don't know. Like, okay, NES Classic comes out tomorrow. pre-orders? Nope, got nothing. Okay. But yeah, so pre-orders for the SNES Classic, the system that is just going to disappear into myth and legends because, I don't know, for some reason, Nintendo's going to make 26 instead of 25.
Yeah, basically. Well, so now I'm curious, and I'm questioning whether or not the source I got on the SNES Classics being pre-orderable in physical GameStop, the brick and mortar GameStop stores, is even reliable at this point.
Because I haven't checked on there because with history of the NES Classic, I was like, yeah,
They probably won't have it. But
yeah. So I can check at some point this week just by popping in, saying what's up to everybody.
that would be good if you can get one at this point before like the mass amount of pre-orders comes in. But I'm starting to think it's not likely, but we'll see.
That one.
I'll be damned if I can't get this thing.
I'm so sorry that you just damned yourself.
Yeah,
I am
basically.
so sorry. Wait, you will be able to get one, Scott. You will. It's 100% guaranteed that you'll be able to purchase one. There is I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and go 6.5% chance that you'll be able to purchase one at retail price.
Yeah. There's a 100% chance you'll be able to get it at 300% retail price.
Yeah.
But what if I told you there was another classic 16-bit console that could get you Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3, Shining Force 1 and 2, Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4, Shadow Dancer, Shinobi 3, Altered Beast, and basically every 16-bit Sonic game for only $80, the same price as the SNES.
I would ask you, Neil, don't they already have that?
Yeah, if
was
you
I
really
the only
want
person that was I the
Isn't
only
it
person
already
that yeah, no, was I the only person that like 2 years ago was walking into Urban Outfitters where they sell the Sega Genesis?
Yes, you
with
were the
all
only
the games.
person.
My sister quite literally owns one of those, and they were $50 back in the day.
Yes, this is definitely something that is trying to capitalize on the most recent news with the SNES Classic's upcoming release. But the Sega Genesis Flashback and the Atari Flashback 8.
That one sounds interesting-ish. It looks cool at least.
Yeah, they will be available for pre-order July 28th, 2017.
I think you can still actually walk into Targets and grab the Segas.
Yes, you can. The issue, though, is that, like, as you've alluded to, this is not a new product. And in that regard, like, the SNES Classic and NES Classic really weren't new products in terms of what they did, but they were new for the console, for that specific brand. The company AtGames, they've made these products before, especially when you notice the Flashback 8 in relation to the Atari. The problem is that their reputation has been rather low, and like the games themselves haven't been emulated that well, and usually the construction's not great.
Yeah,
when compared to the Nintendo equivalents,
because they only had to make 12 Nintendo classics. So
and I've never felt one of the Nintendo ones, so I don't necessarily know. Like, does it feel just like when we're at least talking about controllers, just like the originals?
Exactly.
But
who knows?
The price of this particular console is a little more than what you could find them at NFM and Target and so forth, which I think the last one I saw was $40 for a similar number of games.
It comes with like 80 plus games, and it's got the space to fit the actual cartridges in it, unlike the NES Classic and SNES Classic, respectively.
But if this version does take at least a little inspiration from the NES Classic, or at least from that we've heard from reviews and so forth, offers a better build, better emulation technology as well, hopefully. But if it did, this would be amazing because this particular lineup is loaded, to say the least. And to cap off our remake and classic discussions, last week Nintendo also put in a European patent for the N64, essentially. Like pushing details aside, too long didn't read. We're going to probably see an N64 Classic next year.
That one I'll shoot a little harder for, depending on what games come out. I just want Quest 64, honestly.
Really? Okay.
You mean you don't want Glover?
Oh, that did exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I was thinking about it, my first thought was, I just thought, what was going to be their library of games for the N64?
Pilot Wings, Diddy Kong Racing, Blitz 98, Quest 64, Super Mario 64, because
Donkey Kong 64.
Blitz will be
Probably
Kong
a Zelda
64.
game.
Blitz is owned by. Do you happen to know?
No.
It's
It's just one of the classic games I remember playing on thing, and that's also at my work. There's a 64 set up, and those are pretty much the games that are there as well. So the good ones.
the problem that comes with that is going to be licensing,
Yeah.
player licensing, and so forth. Just like how we probably wouldn't see anything with the WCW or. Yeah, it was WCW games for the 64 for the most part, right?
And
NWO.
WWF. It was FNCW. World Wrestling Federation and World Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, I just don't remember
No,
any good
WW
WWF games back then.
Oh, yeah. Whether or not they were good games, I don't know.
Well, in any case, the question of whether or not they could even get those games, because not only would they have to go and contact whoever owns the rights to THQ. Well, no, THQ is still around, but I don't know if they've retained those game rights specifically.
Probably not. Then they've got to get the rights of the people who own the rights of the people who were playing football at that time. If they're dead.
Well, yeah, football in the case of Blitz, and then in the case of wrestling, like, what are they going to do with the games that have Chris Benoit as well? Since at this point, Chris Benoit has been wiped off the map of all.
Everything.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Chris
But
Benoit.
the same thought applies to, did they get, like, in the player appearance, like, those contracts that allowed them to get the players for the first releases, were they binding in a way that would allow them any sort of post releases or re-releases? And in most cases, that's not the case. Case. I feel really redundant in my
I feel like
discussion today.
J.K. Rowling in her first Harry Potter book.
Yeah, basically.
Sorry. So, segueing.
But real quickly, GoldenEye, that would be one everyone
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
How is that going to happen? Like, first, that wasn't a Nintendo developed game. It wasn't a Nintendo license, obviously. And they would also have to get the actors' likenesses from not only Pierce Brosnan, but also, and everyone in the GoldenEye movie, but assumedly everyone that is featured in the multiplayer, like the actor that played Jaws, Odd Job, all of those characters. And as I'm going,
Make it work.
Well, as I'm thinking about it, I mean, the correct answer is they just put in Perfect Dark instead, because that's a better game.
Oh yeah, that would be a much better game. You're right.
But no
Laptop
one,
gun for days.
but no one,
Farsight.
that's not the title that everyone's looking for, right? Like,
Right, you still have to sell that name recognition for it.
yeah, and just by the nature of this discussion, it occurred to me that, like, there really aren't that many N64 classics. But when you look at the SNES Classic, maybe you don't necessarily need that many games, because they cut down the number from NES Classic to SNES Classic, and they will probably just cut down the number even more. But as long as the titles are there, I'm sure people will buy it.
Here's the
regardless.
N64 Classic. It now has Mario 64.
I mean, let's be fair. Like,
$120.
an HD release of that would be would sell really well, I'm assuming. Like, Mario 64 is always going to be one of the best games and, like, most revolutionary games, no matter what you do or say, right?
Oh, I guess they put Ocarina of Time on there.
Yeah, and then Majora's Mask, assumedly, as well.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know about that. They may just do one.
I just want Quest 64, honestly.
I don't think I played Quest 64.
Oh my god, it was so good. It was like, yeah, magic and sword fights, and it was long, kind of boring. It was so good. Member berries all over the place. I think the 64 was honestly like my most memorable system for me back when I was a kid.
Oh, man. And I wonder, it's a third-party developer, Imagineer, so I wonder who, because I'm assuming that company does not exist anymore. Doesn't say they don't exist, though. Published by THQ, Konami, and Imagineer.
Oh man, such a good game. Just Let's look at that artwork, yo. I guess Banjo-Kazooie. That's what cover art looked like back in the day.
Banjo-Kazooie is interesting, though, because that's, like, are you really going to be able to get that from Rare at this point?
No, because they're doing a new one right now.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Oh, but maybe, because they'd have to pay Rare anyway.
Well,
So-
right.
And Rare would just be like, okay, we ain't got to do shit.
But Rare's been doing their own...
HD remixes.
Yeah, they did their Rare game collection that had, everything back from their Battletoads days to
Holy fuck, Pokemon Stadium. Oh,
Pokemon Snap.
Ooh, yeah. That's actually a great point. Pokemon Stadium would be an easy selling point for me.
that one. No offense to your Pokemon Snap. I would also
Snap's
play.
way better.
I would also play Pokemon Snap.
I didn't get to play
Bomberman
Snap,
Hero?
so I'd love to play Snap.
Bomberman, I don't know. Like, when you look at the SNES Classic, it seems really restricted when it came to Konami titles.
Ooh, there's, what is it? Is it Yoshi's Story for N64?
Was that not SNES?
No, well, there's Yoshi's Island, but Yoshi's Story is the N64.
I think you're right. Yep, Yoshi's Story, N64.
Oh man, yeah, that's a great one too. That's a really good one.
I'm actually getting pretty hyped for this Nintendo 64 Classic.
The problem is, are they going to release all of these games we're actually naming? Because I feel like if you told me the SNES Classic was coming out and we didn't have knowledge of the game titles, I would have named a bunch of titles that got excluded from that list.
Ooh, Conker's Bad Fur Day.
They're probably not going to put Conker out.
Oh God, no.
Like, as much as I would love that, I think Conker is maybe not the image they're going for.
Oh, and I guess they put the good Star Fox on there with the 64.
What, the good Star Fox? Are you saying that
Star Fox
Star Fox
64.
1 is not good?
Well, I'm saying it's not nearly as good as Star Fox 2 because someone's going to get to play that. Maybe.
I will after I pay that 300% markup.
Fucking Glover.
Let's talk about something we discussed last week, the Overwatch League, and its new logo is maybe raising some eyebrows when it comes to the Major League Baseball Association. The new logo utilizes a common theme amongst designs for the MLB, NBA, PGA Tour, Major League Gaming, in that it features a white figure bisecting contrasting colors. In the case of the MLB and NBA, PGA Tour, I think even Major League Gaming, it's red and blue, whereas the Overwatch League features a white silhouette of Tracer with charcoal and gold on the respective sides.
Yeah, MLG is also blue and red.
I was about to say this has been copied so many times that I don't think it really matters anymore.
Yeah, this is the MLB. Like, I don't know exactly what they're going for because I have a really, really high amount of skepticism that they'd be successful in saying that this icon is, really violating anything that all these other icons don't already do to a greater degree with their similarity in color, their bisecting design. I mean, at the very least, you can go ahead and give Overwatch credit for not having red and blue. MLG looks like MLB, besides the controller and the player silhouette, and it's only a letter difference. So I'd be surprised that they didn't go for that as opposed to Overwatch. When it came time to complain.
It looks like everyone's going to be complaining about Overwatch, and we're just all going to mysteriously forget that MLG exists.
Don't you think Tracer's guns kind of look like a baseball bat?
No. I'm going to have to say no.
Or maybe it's the ball that looks like the gun. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's such a stupid complaint.
Wait, are we talking about things people complain about on the internet? What?
Oh, that's a point. But I'm saying it's a stupid complaint by an organization that should recognize that it's an incredibly stupid and pointless complaint. Why waste any of your time on this?
Wait, is MLB actually trying to waste any other time on this, or is the internet just saying MLB is running out of time to waste their time on this?
They've wasted enough time because they filed an extension on their deadline to file a
complaint about it.
Basically.
Oh, so the
or
MLB
a motion
is
against it.
So the MLB is wasting their time with this.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just thought the internet was saying the MLB should probably do something about this, and the MLB was just like, I guess we'll do something maybe. I don't.
But why wouldn't they have, even for the MLG logo, which surfaced, within the last decade or two? I'm trying to think how long Major League Gaming's been around. But it as the list notes, there are quite a few logos that are far closer to the MLB, and granted, many of them have been instilled decades and decades ago at this point. It seems hilarious to think that this particular logo from Overwatch is one that actually breaks the copyright or trademark.
Totally.
But that's happening. In other news, Doom, the 2016 release, is getting a big patch full of multiplayer changes.
It's their 6.66 patch, which is I applaud Doom for adding that fun little nod to the nomenclature. But they're getting pretty much a really big multiplayer update. It's 34 gigs, and it's going to give 3 multiplayer DLCs for free to Doom players. And so these DLCs beforehand were rough. I think they were $39.99 in total. And so players who have already bought Doom and bought the DLCs aren't getting their money back, but they are going to at least get an acknowledgement through badges to show off both veteran players and players who have reached the max Slayer level. And then also what's interesting about this too is that some of the updates that will come in through these DLCs are some new playable demon characters, some new weapons, and their new update is also going to include a organized unlock system as opposed to the random unlock system that they previously had. Now, I haven't played Doom multiplayer, but I heard it was kind of a mess. And this might be one way to really kind of clean it up by having this organized progression system. Now, if there's something that you want to unlock, instead of crossing your fingers and rolling the dice,
RNG?
you can actually, instead of praying to RNGesus, like you can actually work towards the unlocks that you want to have for the game. It's a pretty big patch, 34 gigs. So for computer players who are trying to keep a little bit of space on their hard drive and they don't necessarily play the multiplayer, I don't know, it might be a bit of a nuisance. For instance, I bought Doom exclusively for the single player. I may play the multiplayer sometime, especially after this new update is added. But I remember when I was running on just a 250 gig solid state drive for a little while, and 34 gigs would have been a lot. I might have had to uninstall Doom just to keep some room open for other things that was gaming at the time. So it's a mandatory patch. I mean, if you got Steam open, it's going to be downloading unless you pause it immediately.
Okay,
And
so even if you're not...
yeah, even if you don't play the multiplayer, you're not interested, there's no way to avoid this patch or opt out of it, because it's really not going to affect the
story
single player at all.
So was the story good enough to replay and replay and replay, or are you just talking like in the sense of, I just like to keep games on my hard drive that's 250 gigs? Why would you do that to yourself? You're on a computer. God, please.
Hey, that was the old Scott. This is the new Scott with his 2 terabyte hybrid drive. But yeah, I don't know. If you're buying Doom as a game at all, chances are you're probably buying it for the single player, even at this point, especially not the multiplayer. So a really big patch. I don't know. It's too bad that they can't follow format that actually even Call of Duty's been doing, believe it or not, with the computer gaming scene where you can opt to download both the single player and multiplayer portions of the game, or you can just opt out of having the multiplayer or the single player options. That interchangeability would be nice on games that don't have that great of multiplayer in the first place, and they would save on bulk for what you're putting on your hard drive.
Makes sense, but once again, why would you do that to yourself, Scott, especially on a PC? Like, for what was old Scott's like thought process behind limiting himself to 250 gigabytes, knowing that console gamers were, at least for the PS4 back in the day, we were just like, oh my god, Sony, just please let us plug in an external hard drive. And Microsoft was like, external hard drives, left and right.
Something, balling on a budget. Something, college. I could only afford the smaller memory at the time.
The $300 solid state drive rather than the $100 1 terabyte drive.
You might have got me there, but my League, Cuki, I need to have that performance for when I play League, so I can tilt 4 times in a row when Neil and I play ARAMs.
It's really sad because as soon as you like the next time I played ARAM, I think I won 4 or 5 in a row.
Jesus.
So.
Oh man, it was a bad time. It's a bad time, everyone.
Luckily, ARAM, even if you lose, it's still perfectly fine in my opinion.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah, I don't actually feel that bad losing in League at all, but especially in an ARAM, I don't feel bad. Also, when Neil's like, "Oh, I've never played this champ before. We're gonna give it a little shot." Like, oh.
I can't remember who it was.
It was Lulu.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was a bad game. We got some ugly comps there, Cuki. It's hard to fight those fights when
you don't have an AD carry at
almost
all.
Yeah, exclusively like DPS team against 3 tanks, a healer and a AD carry.
Oh, nice. I'll have to join you guys next time you're playing that.
Do you have
League
installed?
Totally.
Yeah.
There's not much more to say about Doom, but did we want to mention that Pokemon Go is introducing legendary Pokemon? And although you might not be playing League today, Cuki, is this enough to get you back to playing Pokemon Go?
Nope.
But all the changes they've made, the game's bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Okay.
You hear that? It's harder, better, faster, stronger.
That's what it is. Harder, better, faster, stronger. Like, so I was like, there's a South Park reference that should have been made right there.
Is this not just a giant reference to the Millennium Man or whatever? Not Millennium Man, that's a Robin Williams movie. The $1 Million Man?
The $1 Million Man? Or it could be a reference to the Daft Punk and then later Kanye songs, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
They both released songs titled that?
Well, Kanye just sampled it.
Kanye sampled from Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
And he just called it Stronger. Makes more sense. And I was thinking of South Park, the movie, the
bigger, longer, uncut.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That
was the thing.
But yeah, so Pokemon Go, it's got updates. Cool beans, Joe. I guess.
For those that are interested, there's legendary Pokemon afoot.
Lugia is the first one that's been officially announced. And for those that are interested, No Man's Sky also exists.
And there's more updates there too? Huh. I wouldn't mind going to that game if it was, $10 maybe. Or
No Man's Sky or Pokemon Go?
No Man's Sky. My girlfriend's been playing this game called Subnautica, and it basically looks like No Man's Sky.
Underwater Long Dark?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another good comparison to it. And
the Long Dark community is at least every once in a while pretty good about referencing that if you want more of that kind of survival game experience, that Subnautica is a great option. There's also a really great YouTuber named or called the Killian Experience that did a Subnautica episode that's pretty great.
Just by the nature of being underwater makes me feel like it would almost be more of a survival horror game just because, the water is fucking scary as hell.
I don't know how far Tiffany is, and I won't spoil anything, but it is certainly more survival horror than surviving in the Canadian wilderness. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is you can have a bear or a wolf appear in kind of a 360-degree arc around you. While when you're underwater, you can literally be attacked from any angle. And there's this nice, dark, Mariana Trench-like space that may contain unspeakable horrors that have evolved in a totally liquid environment.
So I think whatever updates may have come out that included those things is what she's playing through right now. Because the last time she was playing this, which was more than a week ago, she had gotten so far into the story mode that there was nothing else to do in regards to story aside, in the story part. So it just became Minecraft at that point, for lack of a better comparison.
But Minecraft has a story mode.
And it's its own game featuring Robert Patton. Is that his name? It doesn't matter. But speaking about things that people may not even care about, referencing No Man's Sky, not The Long Dark or Subnautica, I should point that out, because those games both, have their own merits. Last episode, we edited out a bunch of discussion regarding Her Story. I'm only noting that because if you watch the raw form of the podcast, which may or may not come out at some point, with Cookie's 3D or 360 camera, not 3D.
Oh, it's actually on YouTube. It's just not with Scott.
Okay.
I was testing out some things. We'll figure it out.
So you might have heard us bring up Her Story. And on that topic, Sam Barlow, the creator of Her Story, has announced his follow-up game, Telling Lies, which draws inspiration from 70s thriller films. And I just wanted to throw that out there because I think Her Story, if you haven't played it yet, is worth playing or watching, I guess, more than playing sometimes. And
we support developers here. You got to play it.
Yeah.
Buy it, play it.
Well, I would just say that it's not very gamey. So if you bought and played it, it's more like you're buying and watching it, but not.
Buy it and watch it.
Watch it. Something.
Buy it
and
experience it.
Experience. Yeah, there we go. That's the
I
word.
like that. Or buy it, then YouTube it. But buy it.
Buy it, then watch our playthrough. We're not.
Actually, buy it, delete the file, buy it again. Delete that file. That's the best way to go about it. Support developers, whether you know what they're doing or not.
But when I heard that this Telling Lies was specifically going to draw that 70s film feel to it, I don't know. I got maybe a little more excited than I needed to, because I think he has one of the most unique games that came out in 2015, I think. And
but that was the year of Her Story, I guess. Did it come? I don't know.
I think that's when it came out, right?
What else came out in 2015?
Shadow? No, never mind. Don't listen to that. Shadows of Mordor was 2014, right?
That was good.
15 might have been Undertale. I know we just talked about that recently, so I'm not enthusiastic with the fact I can't remember.
The Witcher 3, Bloodborne. Fallout 4, Automatron, The Phantom Pain, Arkham Knight, Undertale, you're right. Ooh, Life is Strange. Ori and the Blind Forest.
There's a lot of good games.
Her Story. Splatoon,
Yeah. Holy shit, that was only 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Until Dawn. Mortal Kombat X.
So maybe I can't say it was one of the most interesting games, but it had one of the most gimmicks to it, I guess. Best gimmick. Second best gimmick. Best gimmick goes to Undertale.
Fair enough. Evolve came out in 2015.
Worst gimmick.
Worst gimmick. Evolve's entire gameplay.
Holy snap, Broforce was 2015. Oh, Ollie Ollie 2, I guess. But we don't care anymore.
You don't care about Ollie Ollie?
Oh no, I fucking loved Ollie Ollie. Ollie Ollie 2 was okay. Welcome to Ollywood. This is what the game's called.
I didn't even realize there was a second game. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was okay. Yeah, Her Story. Buy it, experience it. Games that came out. The Destiny 2 beta.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Lots of Destiny fans are not excited about it at all.
Is there too much story this time?
No. It's more balanced for multiplayer rather than story. and the core Destiny fan base is actually just in it for the story.
But there was no story in Destiny 1, quote unquote.
There wasn't an OG Destiny 1, but after the Taken King and the other like 3 DLCs, it actually got kind of interesting.
So the majority of players are playing single player then, quote unquote?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether or not you can call it single player because all of the raids were multiplayer, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean that.
So they
by
were in it for the
definition.
raids. They were in it for the PvE experience rather than the PvP experience.
Oh, so Destiny 2 is trying to
become more esport like, so it's balancing for PvP, which so everyone's saying the PvP is balanced really, really well. The PvE is balanced poorly. So no longer do you feel like the Guardian blasting shit up. You just kind of are. I did the strike and I was like, okay, this is fine. This is fine. It took me and the other 2 Guardians I was with about 8 attempts to beat the final part of the strike. And I was like, okay, now I can see why. Because they're like, so your plasma grenade, it's on like a 1.5 minute cooldown.
But you regenerate?
Yeah.
I take it. So as opposed to picking them up.
Yeah, so in Destiny, the original, it was always on a cooldown, but the cooldown wasn't nearly as long, but people would spam things in the PvP. So in order to balance out the PvP more, they've made the cooldowns longer. They've also changed bullet types. So for shotguns, they're no longer medium bullet type, they're a heavy bullet type, and for sniper rifles, it's heavy. So that's really good for PvP because those ammo types, they generate like once or twice per match, and you've got specific points where you can go pick them up. In PvE, it's rare to find the heavy type of ammo, and that's your secondary weapon, not your third weapon. So like using a shotgun became a lot harder in the PvE section, so a lot of people are complaining about that.
Doesn't this seem like something that doesn't have to have a direct correlation between the two? Like you can balance the PvP in a way that doesn't affect the PvE. You just have to take the time like
to set 2 different parameters and say, hey, this file has the PvP balance. This file has the PvE balance. That's what everyone's saying. It's like, hey, this game feels really great in PvP, not so great in PvE. Please separate those 2 balances out, please.
It doesn't seem like it'd be that hard, and other games already do that.
Yeah. So a lot of people are complaining about that right now. Otherwise, pretty solid. I'm actually enjoying kind of the newer things. You start off feeling kind of sort of like a badass, but not really that much like a badass because of balance issues.
Do you get any story like in the... So does it feel more substantial? Because I know that was one of the things they were trying to... I think the direct quote was from whomever on the development team, but they wanted players to complain about the amount of story they were getting, as in there's too much story.
I wouldn't know. So basically what they do with the beta, they run you through the invasion of the of Earth via the new threat, and then they say, okay, that's the invasion, here's a strike, pretty much. So they give you like the first mission where you're just being all badass and doing things, and all hope is lost because you as one person can't do it all, and then they give you a strike mission.
This was episode 25 of the Fancy Ramen podcast. If you'd like to send in questions, concerns, corrections, you can reach us at podcast@fancyramen.com or comment below if you're on YouTube. I like it when you have your plug right after mine.
Oh, okay. I'm
sorry. I know it was unexpected.
You can also reach us at the Fancy Ramen podcast page because it's been updated. Yep, it's been updated. Omake!
If you like what you heard, leave us a review on YouTube.
Oh, that
or
one.
on YouTube, excuse me, on
Apple
Podcasts or the iTunes podcast store.
The best way to help Fancy Ramen grow is by word of mouth. So, if you want to give us money, but we'd honestly appreciate you telling more people about us and listening in.
How
it's
can they
cheaper
give us money?
for you and for us
How can they give us money? Send it.
Yeah, unmarked
Obviously.
bills in the mail. We'll give you Cookie's address.
Bear bonds, please. Bear bonds.
At what point will people start sending us candy? Is my question.
Oh, that'd be great. Can we ask for that instead of cash? It's more likely. People are way more likely to spend money on an item and send it than just give the money away, even though it
Matter
would
of fact,
theoretically be cheaper.
don't give us anything except for your fanciest of fancy ramen recipes.
Oh, I'd take it.
I'm Cookie.
I'm Neil.
And I'm Scott.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.